What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down some important things that Jerome Powell said, what President Trump just said about China that's very important, and why we have more data coming out for tomorrow that could cause some volatility. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Mumu link that's down below, or use my QR code right over here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000 or more, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvidia plus $100. If you deposit $10,000 or more, you're going to get $300 worth of Nvidia plus a $100 cash reward. Or deposits $50,000 or more to get $1,000 of free Nvidia stock plus $100. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, and the offer ends very soon. So please use my link down below to sign up. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So the market is very tricky. As you guys can tell, we have a lot of volatility that's coming. But one thing you'll see is that the market is essentially stuck in a range. So what tends to happen is this. SPY got this big sell-off after President Trump announced the tariffs in response to China increasing their export regulations on the natural minerals and other rare earth minerals. That was some important news that came out that caused the market to dump last Friday. But then notice that we didn't just hold below our 200 EMA. We actually wicked below this, then bounced once we got to this red line right here. We formed the wick right here and bounced off the red line. Then the next day, it was Monday. So Monday basically came yesterday. The market gaps up hugely and it pushes back up towards our 50 and our 20 EMA, which happened to be around the 665 area. Then we rejected again with more news coming out about more regulations from China. I'll go over everything in just a couple of minutes. We dump again. Then we have Jerome Powell giving a speech. We start bouncing, approaching it. Then Jerome Powell launches us back to 665. Then we start to dip again. So notice the pattern, okay? As we approach 665, SPY keeps rejecting. As we get close to like the 652 area, there was one exception. We kind of wicked right here and then bounced. But as we approach this red line here, we like to basically bounce. So SPY is sandwiched between our EMAs up here and then our 200 EMA down here. That's what SPY is basically doing. Now, tomorrow we could try to go for 665 again, but we need confirmation. Break this, then we're looking for a bigger move up if we could break 665 and hold it or close above it. But for our support, if we kind of like push off 665 and reject, if we close below 652, there's going to be a risk of more downside and a bigger move back down if we get some kind of big rejection like that. But we have to lose 652 just for confirmation. Notice the QQQ is doing the exact same thing, right? And this looks even more evident. So we're range bound, right? We're going back and forth. We bounce off the red line, the 200 EMA, back up to our 20/50 EMAs, reject a little bit. We didn't come quite down to the 200 EMA, but we came close. Push back up to resistance, then we turn down a little bit. We're going to see if we could bounce in the morning, and then we're going to see if we get some kind of rejection or not. But the reason the market's moving like crazy is because we get so much stuff coming out. You have Jerome Powell giving a speech, you have the news involving the US and China, and you have some data coming out. I'm going to break down what news comes out next, and I'll talk about what I think is going to happen as time goes on. So without further ado, let's talk about Jerome Powell. So when the market gapped down, okay, he caused the market to bounce because he remains very, very dovish. He was going over the Fed's balance sheet and going on about how the Fed have a basically a very similar trajectory as before, but there have to be some adjustments to be made depending on what happens with the labor markets. However, he talked about how there is weakness in the labor market. And once again, there's no such thing as a risk-free path. So there are risks involved. But once again, it's quite evident that the Fed is in a position where cuts are still imminent. So I made that very, very clear that the Fed is going to be very patient to look at the data. But right now, based off the current trajectory, there could be more cuts coming. He basically implied that the market loved his dovishness and the market started to pump as a result. So you could see how much Jerome Powell really affected things. We also had another Fed speaker. We had the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston President Susan Collins come out, who reiterated that once again, with the rising risks to the job markets, we are going to likely see more interest rate cuts. That is some more good news. Also, she talked about how when you look at the way things are moving, inflation looks more contained, but there are greater downside risks to employment, and that's the bigger priority, which is similar to what Jerome Powell is telling us, although he is still somewhat uncertain when it comes to like our data, and he still says we have to kind of like look at things. But overall, he is still leaning a bit more dovish. That's what helped the market bounce. So Why did the market sell off? Well, let's actually go over this. As you guys know, President Trump threatened a 100% tariff on China, and China basically said they're going to retaliate. So they weren't really happy about that. But ever since that news had come out, the Trump administration has been seeking to try to cool the tensions between the U.S. and China after they have once again been saying they want to have reasonable negotiations. And then right after, we actually had the U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer come out. He said that it's up to China to determine whether the 100% tariffs that President Trump has threatened on its exports to the US, whether they're going to kick in on November 1st or not, because they're waiting to see what kind of reaction they get. That's what's very, very important. Because once again, there's been a lot of tension ever since we had the minerals export restrictions, and that is what's continuing, at least for the time being. Now, there was some negative news that caused the market to gap down today. So, the bad news was that China had said that the new port fees that have just come out are designed to protect its shipping industry from what they claim are discriminatory measures from the US. That's their perspective of this. This means that what they're doing is these new fees apply to US owned, operated, built, and flagged vessels, and they are once again showing new changes. So now China's retaliating by increasing port fees, and they're also threatening more forms of retaliation. So the US and China are now charging additional port fees, which is going to be affecting holiday toys, crude oil, and all kinds of different products. That's part of why the market kind of like dipped the way it did in the morning, but then it bounced with Jerome Powell. Finally, President Trump responded, and he said that he believes that China purposefully is not buying our soybeans and they're causing difficulty for our soybean farmers, right? He's saying that it's an economically hostile act and we are considering terminating business with China having to do with cooking oil and other elements of trade. So that's a very, very important claim by President Trump. Once again, I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I'm just saying that this is what he is saying because his words clearly affect the market big time. So heading into tomorrow, it's a little bit difficult. It's a little bit difficult, excuse me, to predict all of this because it depends on what happens with the U.S.-China relationship. It depends on what happens with all this news. Jerome Powell did help us push, but we have not broken major resistance yet, and we're still range bound. So we'll see if there's any more updates from President Trump going into tomorrow. Also, for tomorrow, we have two more things worth noting. Tomorrow is going to be Wednesday. Okay, we have ASML, Progressive, Dollar Tree, Bank of America, and Morgan Stanley all announcing their earnings. Morgan Stanley is going to be a big one alongside Bank of America. So if the big banks do well, we could see the market try to go higher. But then again, it also depends on the relationship between the US and China and their trade positions. Also, we do have some data. We have basically some more data coming out involving the Empire State Manufacturing Index in the morning, then a bunch of Fed speakers throughout the day tomorrow, which could also cause some volatility. Finally, the market is still led by fear. We're going to see if we become extremely fearful or neutral, depending on our positions. Momentum is still at fear. We're going to see if this shifts. The put to call option ratio is at greed. We're going to see if that shifts or not. And the VIX remains at extreme greed right now. So we're just waiting to see if we get any changes or not. So keep that in mind. So with that being said, let's now kind of like talk about what's happening with this market. Once again, guys, here is what SPY is doing. I want to make this very, very clear. As we hit this resistance up here, we like to basically reject. As we break this level right here, we like to reject. Then as we hit this support, we like to bounce. So we're basically going back and forth like this. This is what SPY is doing as of right now. And that's what we should be assuming will likely continue. Now, if you want to be bullish, and I want to just go over the cases because, like I said before, I am not a fortune teller. I don't know what's going to be on the news tomorrow about President Trump or the US and China, or if something else is said by the Fed, right? We don't know exactly what's going to happen, which is why you want to be very prepared for anything. And then I will go over my prediction anyways. But to be bullish, you want to see us hold above 665. If we hold 665 or close above it, we could be going back up to all-time highs. But 665 is a very, very key resistance. There was a time where we were near this level. We ended up getting a rejection. So watch 665 to be bullish. If you're a big bear, okay, you're going to argue that, wait a second, this looks like a head and shoulders, a left shoulder on SPY, a head, and then this is like our right shoulder. We're about to get a big rejection. That's what the bears will basically argue, right? This is like a head and shoulders. But for us to be bearish, you want to see us lose 652. We need a bad piece of news, and we have to lose 652. If we lose 652, we could be looking for a move all the way down to about 646 and eventually the 630s. So what's going to likely happen? Well, judging by the charts, when I actually look at this, the 4-hour has a nice PPO right now, and we're looking like we made a higher low compared to this low. So SPY does favor that it wants to retest at least 665 or so and go a little bit higher tomorrow morning. That's the most likely possible move from a technical standpoint. Maybe the big bank earnings help us bounce. But as of right now, there's no confirmation of us breaking 665. We have to see if that breaks or not. If not, we could still just kind of reject after trying to pump again and remain range bound. And I think that's the most likely possibility for now. Of course, it depends on the news. We can't always predict. But I think that we could be looking for some upside in the morning. We might be looking for an attempt to get back up to like 665 to 667. But if we can't hold above 665 by close, we could kind of push there, then reject right back down and continue to trade sideways. So keep that in mind. That's the most likely possibility for SPY. On the QQQ, for those who love to play and watch tech, if you want to be bullish, you need to see us break and hold above 603. This is the resistance we saw from Monday. Break 603, and then we could be looking for an attempt for all-time highs, right? We're gonna be going for like 606 or above. If you're bearish, you want to see us get a big rejection, bad news, and lose 585. If we lose 585, we're looking for a big dump right back down. Right now, we bounce off our 200 EMA, reject off our 20 and 50 EMA right here, bounce, and then we reject. So we are still technically making higher lows. So we're looking a bit more bullish and favoring an attempt for like 603. It's possible we go a little bit higher tomorrow, but if we can't hold above 603, even if we push towards 603 and see a small push on the QQQ tomorrow morning, we could still reject and continue to stay in this range, going back and forth and back and forth. That's the most likely possibility, although we do favor some upside tomorrow morning. Keep that in mind. On the IWM, we look more bullish. Now, if we end up losing 243, we're looking for a bigger dump back down towards this gap fill area around 238. But for now, we're favoring 250 as our targets, and we'll see if we get some kind of rejection off 250 or not. ES had a low here, came up, made a higher low, and bounced. If we end up seeing ES lose essentially 66.60, we're looking for a dump back down. If we break 67.23, we're looking for a attempt for 67.50. As of right now, we remain more range bound. I do think that ES goes for essentially 6,700. Then we consolidate and we see some sideways price action for now. And then we're going to see if we reject back down or not. But that's what I think is going to likely happen for now, unless we get back above 67.25 and then 67.50 to be bullish. On NQ, if we break 25,000, we're looking more bullish. If we lose 24,600, we're turning back down. I'm favoring 24,960. And I dip back down some consolidation like this as the most likely possibility. I think we just see some sideways price action, some consolidation tomorrow as the most likely case. We might push in the morning for 24,960 and turn back down, but that's what I'm looking for at least for now. Bitcoin might try to bounce a little bit. We have a double bottom setup, so this might be trying to go for 113,900, and if that breaks, we're looking for 116,000. But then once we touch this trend line, we could reject again, because notice that this white trend line is resistance. We keep rejecting off this. We might slowly push for the 115 to 116,000 area, then reject. That's the possibility for now. Tesla's in the middle. So we have a bullish and a bearish case. The bullish case is that this is like an inverse head and shoulders forming. And if we could clear 440, then I think we could easily start running a lot harder. But the bearish case is that when you look at Tesla, we keep on rejecting off this trend line. This is getting rejection after rejection after rejection. So if we can't break past this white trend line, then we're going to continue to downtrend, right? That's the more bearish case. We're going to be watching for this going into tomorrow. I do think Tesla tries to pop a bit in the morning. We might be looking for like 435 or so, and then we could reject. But I would not be surprised if we actually downtrend a bit, because my concern is that Tesla has a gap to fill at 414 and a second gap down here at 395. So there is some downside risk. Maybe a pop in the morning, then a slow downtrend back down to that gap fill. We'll see, just to be safe though. Nvidia is on a bit of a downtrend unless we get back above 185 to be bullish. If we lose 178, returning back to bearish, we're in the middle, but I do see a test of 178 coming, and that might slow down tech. Apple's in the middle. As we hit 250, we like to reject. As we hit 245, we like to bounce. Might pop for 248 and then dip back down to like 244. I do see some weakness nonetheless. Netflix is on a bit of a downtrend, could be retesting 1200. We'll see if we bounce. If not, we could be dipping to this gap fill back down to 1190 essentially. MSTR is on a bit of a downtrend. It is consolidating and trying to base near 300, so it might try to retest 310, then reject and just trade sideways. I'm not really seeing much with this. Celsius is rejecting. It might retest 61.5, bounce a bit, then continue to trade sideways, but it's not really doing much. Supermicro's range bound between 54.59 and 52.9. Might retest 54.59, dip back down, and continue to trade sideways. Palantir has support at 179.5. That breaks, we're looking for 182. But if we end up losing 178, we're turning back down, but this is still favoring 182. For Rivian, if we break 13.12, we're looking for an attempt to push back up to 13.25. But if we end up losing 12.9, we're turning back down. This is still favoring 13.25 or above. We also have a double bottom right here. If we end up breaking past 28.5, we're bullish. But if we lose 27.3, we're turning back down. We're favoring 28.5 or above, at least for the time being. On AMD, we have a left shoulder ahead and then a right shoulder forming. If we lose 209, we're looking for a dip to 201. But if we break past 230, we're looking for a bigger bounce. I anticipate a lot of sideways price action and maybe a little bit of a dip. I'm kind of concerned about AMD because we have a head and shoulders like pattern, but I'm not saying this means we will for sure drop because you need confirmation. You need to see us lose, first off, 209, and then if we lose 202 near the 50 EMA, then I'm turning more bearish, right? We have confirmation. We need confirmation to see this head and shoulders pan out. Sometimes these are traps. If we get above 230, though, that invalidates the downside. We're going to be looking for new highs. So we'll see if the head and shoulders pans out, but there is a risk on AMD nonetheless. ARM has supported 166. If it doesn't hold, we're looking for 159. I do see some downside risk. PayPal, however, is bouncing, looking for a test of 69.8. If that breaks, I'm looking for 70.6 for a temporary move up. Then we'll see if it rejects off those levels, but there's some upside likely coming. Coinbase has 337 as support. We'll see if it bounces. If not, we're going to be dipping lower. Amazon might try to rebound. It's kind of choppy right now. As Amazon hits 215, it likes to bounce, and at 220, it likes to reject. Might retest 220, then turn back down, so keep that in mind. On Meta, we have 715 as our resistance and 700 as our main supports. Might retest 715, turn back down, and continue to chop around, and we'll see if we get a rejection or not. Google has support right here at 244. If that fails us, we're looking for a move back down to 242. But if we break past 250, we're looking more bullish. We have an inverse head and shoulder, so this does look a bit more bullish. If we hold 244 tomorrow, look for a big bounce on Google. This has potential to bounce, in my personal opinion. MSTR, I keep saying MSTR, Microsoft, excuse me, guys. We're favoring 516 as our potential target because we're bouncing off our red line here, and it looks like it might be going back up towards 516. There might be a small bounce in Microsoft. Oracle has a gap to fill. If we could hold 297 and get back above 300, I'm looking for a bounce to at least 305. For a few more, DJT is consolidating. We have resistance around 16.65 and support down here at 15.96. The VIX is also range bound. As we hit 22, we like to reject. As we hit 19, we like to bounce. We're going back and forth like this on the VIX. So it's also range bound until we break the 22s to be bullish or until we lose the 19s to be more bearish. We're still stuck in the middle, which tells us the market is range bound. So we'll see. It does look a little bit weak here. It might dip a little bit more before it tries to bounce again, but I just see a range bound price action. The 10-year is dipping. The dollar is also dipping, which tends to be bullish. And then crude is kind of bouncing a little bit. So in my opinion, be unbiased about the market. SPY and the QQQ are trying to make higher lows here, so we might go a little higher in the morning tomorrow. But even if we do go a little higher, we have not gotten confirmation of breaking resistance to really push higher. It might be a small pump higher, then we'll see if we get a rejection or not, because we do like to reject near 665 on SPY. So we'll see if we reject or not, but I do see some upside in the morning tomorrow. But keep in mind, as of right now, we're just range bound. We like to bounce off the red line and reject off our EMAs over here. So we might just remain range bound for now. That's the most likely possibility if the trend continues, unless we hold above 665 on SPY, and unless the QQQ could break past 600 and 603. We're just range bound. We're trying to make a higher low here, so there is some potential for upside in the morning, but then we'll see if we get a rejection or not. Honestly, guys, just watch your levels and be unbiased because the market's very tricky because it's so affected by the news. It's affected by President Trump's Truth Social page. It's affected by economic policy between the US and China, and we can't predict everything just yet, which is why I'm telling you that we might go a little higher in the morning, but then be very careful once we touch resistance, and we'll see if we get a rejection off our key resistance or not. Watch your levels, be very unbiased, and we'll see how we end up going heading into tomorrow. Thank you all so much for listening. Enjoy the rest of your guys' days, and I'll be back very soon heading into tomorrow to talk about what's happening with this market. Thank you for listening, guys. Have a good one, and peace out.